Can you imagine living a normal life all this time, ignorant of the fact that an entire underground world was operating right in front of you? A world with its main focus of traditional martial arts as their customs, with their own laws, rules, factions, and turmoil. And one day you being plunged right in the middle of this cold and unforgiving world where these conflicts take place, where killing becomes the norm. How would you react? Well, this just so happens to be the premise of the manhwa called The Breaker, one of my all-time favorites and in my eyes, a cult classic. And without further ado, let's go on to why I love this manhwa so very much. So, this series was created by the writer Jeon Guk Jin and the artist Park Jin Hwan, and I probably butchered those names, and that's gonna happen a lot throughout this video, but please just bear with me. The series also has 3 parts: The Breaker, which released in 2007, and the sequel The Breaker New Waves, which released in 2015 and ran until 2015. And finally we have the newly released Part 3, The Breaker Eternal Force, created in the new webtoon format, and that came out in the summer of 2022. This was a manhwa, in my opinion, kind of just put manhwa on the map, with its breathtaking visuals, enthralling storylines, and amazing character writing. The story follows Xianli, a kid who's bullied for almost every day of his high school life, and on the day he tries to end himself, he's saved by the new transfer teacher Chan Woo, who just so happens to be a part of the underground society of Murim, martial arts masters who controls the underworld. A lot happens between them, but it leads to Xian asking to be taught martial arts in order to become stronger, and Chanwoo agreeing to do so, but it's important to note that his so-called master is also the sworn enemy of the Murim, also known as the Nine-Arched Dragon. The Nine-Arched Dragon because he was able to master 9 arts, where in most cases in this world, a master only sticks to 1, and was even stated that a man who conquered 3 arts was revered as a god. Anyway, this leads to Xian becoming yet another enemy by association, and we see him getting dragged into the world meeting various monstrous figures. But yeah, that was a lot of information, but to be honest, The Breaker has so much more going for it than even its main plot. Like for instance the art. The art displayed in the series is insanity that makes you question how someone can draw this. It's able to perfectly encapsulate the overwhelming presence of certain characters, like this picture of the Nine-Arched Dragon, which is the view of someone who's laid eyes on him for the first time ever, and you can just see the absolute malice oozing from this panel. And it isn't just this, there's so many moments and panels that allow you to feel who these characters are. But even the paneling itself is ahead of its time and makes this series extremely easy to read, especially when it comes to its fights. The way movements and actions are emphasized in panels is a sight to behold. Depending on the martial arts of individuals, you're able to see a true personality in the way that they fight. Are they ruthless and vicious, calm and collected, refined yet deadly? All of these are possible and shown through the art. But even besides the art, the story revolving around its characters, world, and motivation are worth it even without the art. The Breaker is able to perfectly allow you to sympathize with those in the secret society of the Murim who aim to uphold their traditions in secret and allow no harm to those in public. But on the flip side, also allows you to see the world through the eyes of individuals who live outside the laws of the Murim, those who admonish the Murim for their traditional yet cold ways and insert themselves into the public, also referred to as breakers. Dangerous to some, but heroes to others, which in this case is our main character's master, the Nine-Arched Dragon. You see, the series is pretty focused on demonstrating the duality of both worlds, where the Murim is focused more so on their traditions and old ways, while the Breaker and even the younger generation is focused on moving the world forward. Whether that be changing the already status quo state of the world or just implementing new things. as in new clans, organizations, or even laws. And so this idea of traditions versus evolution is something present in a lot of the areas of the story, especially in the second installment of The Breaker New Waves, where much of the younger generation seems to find themselves driving the future conflicts and find themselves at odds with the elders. With this premise, it allows Breaker to be one of those series that nails every aspect of its story perfectly, and allows us to grow close to characters in a genuine and natural way, and also isn't afraid of taking them away from us. Now, when you put all this together, there is still one aspect that I did not touch on, which is the power system and fights in the series, which just so happens to be a huge part of it. Partly because it's kind of hard to explain. So there's a central system of ki that Maroon people have within them, and they harness that energy when they master their martial arts in various different forms. But it isn't something as flashy as beams and such, but rather martial arts battles with heavy emphasis on speed, technique, precision, and so on. But it works so well with the series. So obviously every significant strike within the Breaker feels like it'll make somebody collapse on the spot because they're written with so much impact and vigor. Like these images displaying the gathering and release of ki, they really give off this devastating vibe and perfectly show how the gathering of ki starts at the fist or the entire body and releasing at the impact of a punch or kick. And the power system further adds on to differentiate between masters and novices. When our main character Xian is first thrown into battle, we see him get absolutely manhandled, where he's essentially a zombie after getting bloodied after every single fight, and helps enforce the idea of masters who dedicate their lives to martial arts. But when we see masters actually fight, it's a night and day difference from what we've seen before, where even the most minute details will decide a fight, and the most significant strikes mean the most. And honestly, the wreckage and carnage displayed in these fights are unparalleled. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that these fights seem very, very genuine, especially when it's anyone fighting. The techniques that are used, the strategies invoked are all real and you can see happening, and when someone does win a fight, it feels earned. And I think it's important to note that our main character Xian doesn't stay a weakling forever and does grow stronger throughout the series, almost to the point where he does seem like a master, and earns the respect of many different elders throughout the world as he displays his unshakable will. So I've outlined three main aspects to the story: the art, the fights, and the overall plot. But if you couple all this together, it really is a journey reading The Breaker, whether it be part 1, 2, or 3. Seeing Xian's journey into a full-blown martial arts master is extremely rewarding. And also seeing those around him change, as well as the world continuously evolving as the series goes on. In my opinion, I don't think there's anyone who's ever regretted starting and finishing The Breaker. And with the new part coming out, I think there's no better time than now to really get into the series as it transitions into the new art style of the webtoon format. And I'm also not losing hope on a possible anime adaptation, especially with other manhwa and webtoon getting their own adaptations, like Solo Leveling, Tower of God, and even Lookism. There's definitely a spot for The Breaker in this world, and I hope it'll happen at some point. Nonetheless, this series has my stamp of approval and you should definitely check it out, and I hope this video played a part in that. Thank you for watching.